Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works. I'm not sure if this story starts with this, but it is as good a place to start as any. This is one of two Dodge vans that came with an Aurora AFX slot car set that I got when I was maybe 10. My dad and I expanded that original figure 8 and added more cars. We would set up elaborate tracks and setups, play with it for a couple months, and then we'd lose interest for a year, and then we'd come back to it. I don't think we ever actually raced. The goal was more who could knock the other guy's car off the track more often. Great fun. Well, Aurora went out of business, and we had to resort to buying whatever parts hobby shops had left over to keep our little fleet running. This poor van will probably never run again. The rubber tires have reacted to the plastic wheels and have all gone brittle. This little van may explain the reason I have a soft spot for Dodge vans and pickups from the 70s. Specifically, I like the original styling that was applied to the first 2 to 3 years of pickup production and van production from 1973 to 1978. And that would be this grille right there. Now this is a vehicle some of you will recognize. It is Squad 51 from the TV show Emergency, which ran from 1972 to 1977. The paramedic truck was a 1973 Dodge D300 with a specialized body on it. This show is probably part of the reason I like this styling. I don't know if Dodge fans have a name for this grille, but I've always thought of it as the Happy Face grille. This is a shot of a 1973 Dodge van. It has a Happy Face grille. This is a shot of a 1978 Dodge van. Once again, we have the Happy Face grille. This is the 1979 Dodge van. It still has the round headlights, but the turn signals are now on the outer corners. This front-end treatment would continue with the single rectangular headlights, then quad rectangular headlights until the 1990s, until a major restyle brought aerodynamic headlights. Sorry, in my opinion, from this point forward, they never regained the good looks that they started with. I already have a mid-1980s Dodge van kit. I reviewed it on the channel a couple of years ago. It was the Bad Company kit by MPC. And as you can see, it has a grille that basically wraps around the front end, and it has turn signals on the corners. And of course, it's got 4 quad headlights there. However, back in 1974, MPC released this kit. Now, I know it has a goofy custom grille on the main artwork, but it came with the original Happy Face grille. Unfortunately, the last time I saw one of these, it was about $180 US. Way too rich for my blood. Imagine my surprise when I came across this kit online. It was less than $100. How much was it? Let's just say it was about $20 more than I was comfortable with, and about $20 less than my breaking point. Yes, I know it sucks that rare kits on the second-hand market can be pricey. This kit was advertised as still being sealed, so I bought it. I was really quite excited when I finally got this in the mail. And not because it had anything to do with the Cannonball Run. I remember watching the movie, and if you're not familiar with the movie, it basically chronicles one of the running of the Cannonball Run, which was a real race that was run across the United States. It was only kind of quasi-legal. And basically one of the things that participants in the race had to deal with is, of course, you were racing across the United States, so you probably weren't adhering to the speed limits. So you wanted some way that you were not going to be stopped by the police. And the two heroes of the movie, Dom DeLuise and Burt Reynolds, they actually got into an accident, actually while flying drunk, I think. And they were picked up by an ambulance, taken to the hospital. And of course, while they're being taken to the hospital, they get the bright idea, what if we souped up an ambulance and made that our race vehicle? And their thinking was, any police that saw this thing motoring along wouldn't have any idea that it was going all the way across the U.S. They would just think it was, uh, going a short distance or whatever, although I suppose Transcon would give it away. At any rate, the vehicle they used was a 1978 Dodge van, and it did have the windows all the way around. And if we look on the side here, they do have the actual picture of the vehicle right there. The rest of the pictures on the box are basically pictures of, as they say, the prototype van. What is interesting about this, and I did look up pictures online, is the van had the vertical taillights that were used throughout the 1980s. So obviously the taillights were updated before the grill was. There was a 1 year where instead of having the wraparound horizontal taillights that the van started with, it had the later vertical ones, but it still had the front end. And here you can see you've got a good shot of the side of the van. Now, obviously, and you can tell this, by looking right at the box, there are no rear windows in this van. There's just decals added on there to give the impression that the windows are there. You know what? No big deal. I didn't care that it was not going to be the exact ambulance. What I was really concerned with was I wanted a 1978 or earlier Dodge van. And we can see right here the bodywork cowls around the grille. There's no perimeter marker lights. You've just got like a small reflector there. This is the van I wanted. And if we bring up the little guy here, you can see that. There's the front end we wanted. So let's look inside, see what we got. Now this was sealed. It did have the original cellophane on it. It had a slight bit of damage, but there was no way it was ever opened. So we got the decals. Actually, the decals you could use for some other vehicle should you wish. But they're actually quite nice. I don't have any problems with those. So I've got, I'm getting into the bodywork. Oh, awesome. And I'm kind of looking at it. And there's a few things in here. I haven't even opened this up. But as I was glancing at it, I noticed that there were some parts of the Bad Company van in here. And I was like, uh-oh, danger, danger. What are these parts doing in here? And this is before I realized that this van had the vertical taillights. I saw the vertical taillights and I was like, what? And then I swapped around the front and you can see that this does not have a cowled front end that the grill fits into. This has a front end that the grill wraps around. You know what? Let's get it out of the bag, take a closer look at it. There we go. That gives us a better look. As you can see, we've got the straight front of our hood, and we've got the cutout for the wraparound turn signals. This is not a good sign. And if we look at some of the other parts here, well, we've got the engine. Why they gave us a full engine in this kit, I don't know, because the hood doesn't open. This piece right here is something that you should not find in any ambulance. This is the bulkhead that goes behind the captain's chairs in the front, and as you can see, it has quilted shag and wagon decor in there. What else have we got in here? Oh yeah, here we go. We've got the weird shag upholstery for the upper sides of the van. So I don't think the coffee table is in here. There we can see. There we are. There's a couple of couches here rattling around loose. So, at least in terms of the body, this is the Bad Company van kit. Ouch. Let's take a look at the chrome sprue, because what did they give us? Did they give us This? No. They gave us this atrocity. This is not the early 70s Dodge front end. Not in the least. This actually resembles the front end that Hot Wheels put on its generic van. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, what's the big deal? There's round headlights, and then you get these turn signal markers, and it's close. Yeah, it's close. But it is not correct. It does not capture the lines at all. I mean, if we... So I try to get them both in the same picture here. I mean, as you can see, this has a nice rounding to it. This, as I said earlier in the video, has kind of that happy face look to it. This does not capture that at all. Even though, yes, I know, it's got round headlights, it's got the turn signals in the middle, it's got the grille, but it's got these corner marker lights. And the setup is pretty much completely wrong. So I'm not sure how this came to be. This is the way it was made. This is the way the kit was made. So I'm thinking that probably what we had here was maybe a little bit of cost cutting on the part of MPC. More than likely, MPC has two separate set of molds for Dodge van bodies. They have the 70s one, and then they've got the 80s one. Well, basically it was designed in 79. And some people may be thinking, well, maybe they modified the original mold to be this. And I suppose that's a possibility, but when you modify a steel mold, basically all you can do is remove material from the mold. So far as I know, you can't really add material. And in order to change this cowling here, you would have to add material to the mold. And this part here would have to be completely reprofiled. So unless MPC had some way of magically adding steel to the mold and then recutting it, I don't think this is the same mold as the original one. I think they retooled it for the 80s. So why would they have used this body instead of the 1970s one? Maybe the 1970s one was damaged, because they have not, so far as I know, and maybe I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. So far as I know, they've never re-released their 1970s vans, and they had 2 or 3 different versions of them. And I've never seen them get re-released. Meanwhile, they've re-released, obviously, the Bad Company van. So it's possible that the 1970s body didn't exist, or I should say the mold no longer existed. So I'm not going to say that the mold makers were lazy or anything like that. It's quite possible the discussion went like, okay, well, we'll just use the Dodge van we have, and maybe the mold maker said, yeah, but the front end is wrong. And it may have been a budget thing where higher up said, look, this is a movie tie-in. We're only expecting to move so many of these things. This is your budget. Look, buddy, you can have 1 new sprue. You need to do a new sprue for the emergency lights, because obviously you need to have those, and they need to be on a chrome sprue. And this has to be some of the worst chroming I've ever seen on a model. So it's possible that the people who are doing the molds were told, look, this is your budget. You can do 1 new sprue for this. So why don't you design a grill that looks as close as you can get it to the 1970s grill that will fit in the opening for the 1979 and later opening. That's the only thing I can think of. And you know what? Most of us have been in a situation in our workplace where we know this is the right way to do it, and higher ups have said, well, look, we're just going to do it this way, and I hope nobody notices or nobody cares. So this was quite the disappointment for me, that's for sure. It also does come with a bunch of these little sprues like this. Once again, this is just a single sprue. But what you're supposed to do is glue this to one of its buddies to create the lenses that go on top. So I suppose there was maybe 2 new sprues cut for this. This is the front windshield glass, and this was rattling around inside the box. And it has to be one of the most scratched windshields I've ever seen. You know, a little future floor polish will clean that up. Yeah, well, I think it needs to be sanded and polished first. There's actually a semicircular gouge here. So, like I said, this was a disappointment. The main reason I wanted this kit and I was willing to pay a little bit extra for it was for this grill. This grill, which has kind of the oval shape to it, with the headlights set up exactly like this. That was the reason I got this kit. This is what I wanted to add to my collection, was a van with this styling. And I know this kind of sorta resembles it. It is not it. So that's why I'm calling this thing burnt. Because that's kind of the way I feel. And some people might be about to jump on the comments and say, you know, it's the reseller's fault. I don't expect that resellers are going to have an encyclopedic knowledge of every single kit ever made. That's just not realistic. Unless you had opened this up to build it, or you knew somebody who'd tried to build it and said, hey, you know, this piece here is completely wrong, you would be taking MPC at its word that this is the front end you were going to get. There's no reason to suspect otherwise. Now, we know it says it's the prototype model. But this isn't like it was, you know, an artist's rendering. This actually showed a piece that had been glued together with actual parts and everything like that. Maybe they used one of their last 70s vans or something like that to create it. I don't know. But I don't blame the reseller. I don't think there's any cause to say, hey, I want my money back. So my plans for this kit are unclear. I'm not quite sure what I will end up doing with it. I could make a copy of the Bad Company grill, which is an actual grill that was used. I've never ever seen a grill like this on a Dodge van. Yes, there were some with round headlights, but they didn't have these intermediate lights. They didn't have the, what they had was a broad rectangular grid in here. Didn't have this at all. And then, of course, we had the stacked headlights. Then we had the single large headlights. There were many variations in the 80s, but we never had this. So, this is wrong. And you know what? If you have this kit and you don't care and you build it, more power to you. I don't have a problem with that. But I wanted a 70s Dodge van. That's what I paid for. And that's not what I got. So, I don't know why. Like I said, I can always copy the Bad Company grill and I can use it with this. I could turn this into a camper. I could do a cutaway van with it. There's all kinds of different things I can do with it. What I can't do with it is make a bare bones Dodge van from the 70s. So, yeah, I'm a little disappointed. So, you know, in the grand scheme of things, I was able to put food on the table this week, and I do have a job. I've got 2 jobs. This is a first world problem. This is not the end of the world. There are lots of people in the world who have got bigger problems than this. So, first world problems. At any rate, it is still kind of annoying. And I just thought I'd share this little tale of minor woe. Let's say minor woe. And thanks for watching. And until next time, just keep on modeling.